Hi, my name is Amanda Weaver. I'm proud to host a panel discussion in celebration of International Women's Day, taking place on March 8th. I want to acknowledge and celebrate all the women working in law enforcement and really take this time to facilitate an open and honest conversation with our panelists about being a woman working in law enforcement. So today, my two panelists I have with me, I have Detective Brie Rojas with the Coral Springs Police Department, and we have Officer Hannah Rincon with the Coral Springs Police Department. So I'll start with you, Brie. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been in law enforcement for about 8 years now. Prior to, I was a collegiate athlete down at FIU, Florida International University in Miami, where I played softball. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Shortly thereafter, I got into the police academy. I spent 2.5 years on road patrol with the Plantation Police Department, and I did hostage negotiation over there. I then had an opportunity to come over to Coral Springs. They hired me. I started. I was a road patrol officer for about 4 years, and I recently just got into our detective bureau. We're doing on our BEAR team, burglary enforcement and reduction. So aside from that, I do honor guard, which go out to a lot of our community events. I'm part of our civil unrest and tactical support team, which is ultimately like our field force, riot control, stuff like that. That's pretty much.
Very cool. Very exciting stuff.
Yes.
How about you, Officer Hannah?
I'm Officer Rincon. I went to college at the University of North Dakota, where I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. After I got out of college, I did a little bit of insurance fraud investigations for a little while. While doing that, I went back and got my master's degree in criminal justice. I came down to Florida and started working as a probation officer for the state of Florida, the Department of Corrections. And then I decided I wanted to be a cop, and I got hired by Coral Springs. I'm currently the community involvement officer, and I also serve as a hostage negotiator on our crisis negotiation team.
Okay, very good. So tell me, as you reflect on your career in law enforcement thus far, what motivates you to want to help others?
So I think a big factor with that is knowing that when our citizens call 911, it's potentially one of the worst days of their lives. So just always having that in the back of my mind, knowing that we're going to, something that they've never experienced, and to be that calm in the storm, so to speak. And kudos to our dispatchers up there for, they're that initial voice of reason, calm, and something that people, our citizens, think are, like I said, the worst days of their lives. It could be, something like that.
How about you?
I think the feeling that I get when I'm actually helping somebody and that you've helped them and they are so thankful and they're so appreciative, and that you've made a difference in their life, whether it be for that day, whether it be for their future. I think that feeling is what motivates me to continue to be an officer and continue to keep making that difference in our community.
Do you find that women are a little bit better as it relates to the art of influence or influencing situations over men, or do you think it's just a particular skill set, different people?
I think that as women, and I say this all the time, our ability to communicate is, and I don't want to, no judgment on men, but I feel like we are able to empathize with people, communicate with people. Going on a scene, I know when I get on a scene, what do people want? They want to be heard. That's the number one thing that everybody wants, okay? So if I go on a scene and I'm barking out orders and I'm yelling at people and I'm not listening, I'm just going to escalate a situation. So going on scene, being able to empathize, being able to listen to somebody, at the end of the day, I may not tell them what they want to hear, but they're still going to be appreciative of what I'm saying because I listen to them. And I think women are just naturally better at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find, since you both have experience within hostage negotiations, so that piece of empathy you just spoke to and just listening, would you say that's more of a foundational aspect or a key contributor as it relates to negotiations itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the biggest skill set going with negotiations, and I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the more people talk, the more they de-escalate.
Yep.
So the listening comes in, and it's allowing them open-ended questions to where, they're able to, the more they talk, great, whether it's long, shorter, anything. The more they're talking, the better the situation is because they are de-escalating naturally. And again, they feel that they're being listened to.
Yeah. And that time, when that time progresses, you're able to see, they're able to think a little more clearer. So when everything was heightened and everything was, so immediate in the beginning, the longer they talk and the longer you're out there listening to them, the more they definitely de-escalate and are able to think clearer. So instead of doing something they probably don't want to do, they're really able to think it through during that time. According
to the National Association of Women in Law Enforcement Executives, their stats show that women only comprise about 13% of local law enforcement and agencies across the nation. And it goes on to talk about the fact that their presence in police force, or women's presence in police force, dates back all the way to the beginning of the 20th century, but it's really more so been noticeable over the past 40 years. So with that, what are some of the challenges you face as a woman being in law enforcement?
I mean, I think there's a lot of challenges that we face now, but thank God for our predecessors that have come before us, because they have really made it a lot easier to be a female officer. Going on scene, a lot of times you'll get like, oh, you don't look like a cop, but I'm sure Brie does the same thing. I make a joke about everything. So once you do that, and then they start to see like, oh, okay, and you're kind of breaking those barriers that way. Lighten the mood and just be like, hey, I may not look like a cop, but I'm here, so what can I do for you? So I think there are challenges, and I'm sure Brie can add to some challenges that she sees as well. But there are challenges, but I feel like because of the women that have come before us, we have really gone leaps and bounds from the challenges that they encountered.
Yeah, I just think continuing to break barriers. There's women that are chiefs of police now. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes hand in hand with, the LGBT community as well, where just continue to strive to be great and take these leadership roles and stuff like that, because you never want to go backwards, and I don't think we will, but just make those bounds and leaps towards success, because I could do it just as good as anybody else can.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you've kind of led us into our next portion of the conversation. What challenges do you think the generation behind you may face? So when I think about each decade and women's rights and how we've come along this way, I think of, the late 80s, early 90s, the power suits, the heels, the shoulder pads. And then after that, there was a lot of discussion, both in the business industry and in law enforcement, about wanting to ensure, maybe more like checking off a list, wanting to ensure that they're hitting those demographics. So be it women of color, to your point, LGBT. So what do you see as a challenge for the group of women coming in behind you?
Just making sure we don't go backwards, and continue to, fight and do what we have to do to take these positions of leadership to show, we are good enough and we will do the job. We do it correctly. We might do it a little differently, but just don't ever go backwards. We're always going to keep going forwards and push and push and push.
Okay. Yeah, and just keep showing them that what we bring to the table as women is important, and it's relevant, and it's necessary for law enforcement to continue to progress and move forward.
Working in law enforcement, is it your preference to be recognized based on based off your gender or the skill set you bring to the organization?
I would definitely rather be recognized for my skill set rather than, 100%. Saying, oh, well, she's a female,
She's going to be good at it.
Yeah, exactly. No. I would definitely rather be recognized for my skill set, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Yeah, 100% skill set, no doubt.
Okay. What challenges do you face today being a woman in law enforcement?
Sometimes I think just being taken seriously, you know,
Yeah.
people have this perception of what a cop is, right? Like when you see a police officer, you're this big burly man and he's got all these muscles and maybe he's got a beard, maybe he's got a mustache. They have this perception. So again, when you're going to a call or you're, you know, taking that report, they're not expecting a female, you know, especially like back in the day when I started, you were either, you know, you had to be more masculine looking. You didn't wear makeup. You really, you know, they didn't want you to be feminine. And I think that has changed significantly, which is a good thing, you know. So I think those are challenges. If you're a female and you still want to wear makeup and have your nails done, you know, that it's okay now, which is great. Okay. You know, we've really taken, you know, leaps and bounds in that respect.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face as a woman in law enforcement?
I think sometimes just being taken seriously, you know, society doesn't look at a female and think, oh, that's a police officer. You know, what do we look at? We think it's this big burly guy with muscles and he has a beard, he has a mustache, whatever it may be. We don't look at a feminine female as being a police officer. So sometimes when you arrive on scene, some people might have some biases or assumptions about what they're expecting to roll up. And you know, when it's not what they expect, sometimes that can be challenging. But again, you know, I don't know if it's the community that we live in. I haven't had that happen as much as I think probably other females in other departments do, because we do have a really great community here that does, you know, support us and appreciate us. And our department has quite a few female officers. So they're used to seeing, you know, females out in patrol, you know, in uniform in the community. So
for sure.
Do you know off the top of your head what the percentage of female versus male employment here is?
I wish I did, because it really does seem like we have a lot of female officers.
Definitely outside that 13. What advice would you give to women trying to get into law enforcement?
Oh, just go for it. I mean, it's been, you know, there's give and take. There's the hard days and stuff like that, but just go for it. We're just as great, you know, if not better.
I would say get educated. Get an education. You know, the more that you're armed with knowledge when you go out in the street and you understand the law and you know what you can and you cannot do, that is confidence, and that gives you the ability to really go out there and know that what you're doing is legal, and that to me, that gives me the confidence to know that I'm making decisions based on fact. Prepare yourself, your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. Take care of all of that. Make sure that you're, you know, taking care of yourself before you get into law enforcement, because it's not always easy, and there are struggles. So you really need to be prepared mentally, physically, and emotionally for the job.
Good stuff. I think work-life balance looks a little bit different in your world.
Definitely.
Some of us in the private sector. How do you balance that? I mean, being in law enforcement is kind of a 24-hour job, if you will. So how do you balance home life and work life?
I feel like you got to be able to turn it off.
Yeah. Lots of juggling too. Lots of juggling. And, you know, I think that when I have 2 kids. So when I look at the time that I spend with my kids, I make it a point to make that time more meaningful, you know, like for sure. When I grew up, I don't know about you, but my mom stayed home. She made dinner. I came home, we had dinner. And so I don't have the time necessarily to do that for my kids, but, you know, instead of making a full dinner, we'll go out to dinner and we'll spend time together and we'll, you know, talk about their day and things like that. And I think that that's, you know, important, is just to make, well, it's not like giving up or it's just swapping things to get the same quality out of it.
Yeah, just have the ability to go home and be home, not worry about work on the back end, because ultimately, I mean, it's not healthy if you're doing that.
Right,
definitely.
And find something you enjoy. I mean, I know you go to the gym a lot. And
I do enjoy the gym.
Big muscles.
I do enjoy the gym.
But find something you enjoy to get that stress out. Okay. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
Take care of your body, because it's all you got.
So we've really been focusing on the woman aspect of law enforcement. What do you think in general just makes a good officer?
Honesty.
Yes.
Integrity. Doing the right thing. Willing to be flexible and put your ego aside.
Yeah.
A problem solver.
Communication
is huge.
Communication. Team player.
Yeah, team player.
Be able to help, no matter what, help your partner out, whatever it is. That was always the biggest thing for me when I'm, training, when I was training the new officers, is be the backup that you want to have. Be the person that, is going to, that everyone's like, oh yeah, I'll take them on my scene anytime. Absolutely. They're a help. It's all, be an asset. Don't weigh things down.
Be part of the solution.
Yes, not the problem.
Don't heighten the situation when you come on scene.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Common sense. It's a big one too.
Yeah.
So in a lot of what we do here at WZ is talk about rapport building, and I think rapport building is really the foundation of any type of conversation. If you're looking to make traction with a conversation and asking some really good questions to gain that validatable info or uncover what it is you're looking for, be it in a personal conversation or professional conversation.
Right.
So why do you think it's important to have these skills as it relates to your world, be it rapport building, empathy? We talked about empathy earlier. Just having that conversation to dig in and ask some really good questions to get to what it is you're looking for or investigating.
I mean, it's key, right? I mean, that's if you're able to build a rapport and continue to work the conversation, and then next thing you know, you might be getting a confession out of these people. It's huge in our profession, and just treating them like they're human. Because we all are. I'm gonna make mistakes. You guys are gonna make mistakes, and just letting them know
life is about.
Let them know you're just as human as they are. We're composed of the same things. So just because I'm in this profession doesn't make me better than you. And building that rapport and you're ultimately you're going to get what you need to get.
I think they're more willing to cooperate with you on even when you have a victim. Like if you're able to build that rapport, and maybe they're the victim of a sexual assault or something like that, and they don't want to talk about it. They'll confide in you, and they especially if you're being genuine with the rapport that you're building, people sense that and they feel that, and they're more likely to give you the information that you need, or
help them.
Exactly.
Very good. Now, people these days, so there's so many social injustice issues going on these days and times, and I'm sure they've had managed to trickle themselves into this city and your department as well. I think with a lot of the social justice issues that are out and about these days, people have varying opinions as to whether there are differences between how men lead and women lead. What are your thoughts to that?
I think everyone's going to lead differently regardless of gender. I come from athletics, so I was always more of like a team person. So I'm going to lead differently than maybe someone that didn't grow up like that. I'm more hands-on. I don't, you're probably a mixture of everything because you're smart.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I agree with Brie. I think that, I've had male supervisors that have been great and super empathetic and like awesome, and I've had female supervisors that are very hard and what you would not think from a female. So, I think again, it's a lot of it comes back to personality and each individual that you're dealing with.
As we go about closing out, just to kind of give you a timeline as it relates to International Women's Day. So, thinking past the past several decades and all the progress that women have made throughout the world. We have, late 1800s, early 1900s activism was really big. So getting the word out that women are interested in voting rights and equal opportunity and whatnot. Fast forward to the 1970s, the idea of feminism came about, and women were burning bras, and we saw a lot of rallying and protesting and lobbying for inclusion and influence and equality. Here in the 80s, we saw fixing the woman, so making the woman fit into the male cookie cutter shape, if you will. So that was, like I referenced before, you know, the big shoulder pads and the power suits, and teaching women to speak louder in a boardroom. Not only, you know, it was great they had a seat at the table, but their voice wasn't necessarily being heard. And then as we get into the 90s, it was about change the organization. So organizations, agencies across the country started picking up on, hey, we need to start thinking differently on how we can, you know, be it women influence or promoting, you know, promotion of women, LGBT, women of color, things of that nature. So that's where the conversation really got started. And the introduction, it was really more so in the 90s, top women of Fortune 500 companies kind of came about.
Oprah.
Yeah. And then in recent years, it's been all about men as allies, which I think is really great, because I don't think it should be more around women versus men, because to what we discussed earlier, it's all about the skill set. But it's nice having men as allies in promoting women's rights, you know, be it diversity, equality, inclusion, things of that nature. So that's to kind of give you a little timeline of how all this has come about. So recognizing that we're doing this in celebration of International Women's Day, what would be your message for 2022 in celebration of International Women's Day, knowing we have you as the focus of our law enforcement episode? What would be your message to the viewers watching this as it relates to maybe that timeline, or
be proud of who we are, and, you know, just continue, take step by step, and, you know, make a change, make the world a better place.
We've come so far, and we still have a ways to go, but we have come so far. It's amazing, and keep fighting, keep going, and keep making change and breaking barriers, and
absolutely,
you know, keep progressing.